What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackwitz. This is the Kaged Review, and I'm going to review Unbreakable. This is a movie that came out in 2000. I'm doing this because Glass is coming out, and I wanted to go back and rewatch Unbreakable and Split. Split will be coming right after this. So, this is one of those movies that most people have grown to truly appreciate way after the fact. When it was first released, it didn't get that great of a reception. Coming right off the heels of The Sixth Sense, M. Night Shyalaman. And I think at the time, the topic of like comic books and superheroes, it was kind of before all of that started with the advent of the original X-Men movie, which literally came out in 2000. I think if it would have been released today, it would have been much more well received. So this really is the tale of two men. One is Samuel L. Jackson's character, Elijah Price. Samuel L. Jackson in this movie is fantastic. All the little nuances and little inflections in his face and his voice. He really sells his character, especially at the end. So he is born with a condition. This condition is called osteogenesis imperfecta type 1, and I found out that this is actually a legitimate medical condition, so they're using something real for the storyline. And essentially it causes your bones to be very brittle and break very easily. And he has the best case scenario, because at worst stages the bones break so easily that most patients don't make it for very long. So he uses his time reading, and he develops this genius level intellect. And so he's thinking that if he has this condition where his bones are incredibly weak and they break all the time, that there's got to be somebody on the opposite end of the spectrum that has a condition where his bones are incredibly strong and won't break at all. And so he's going around trying to find the equal opposite of him, and he finds it in David Dunn, and we are introduced to David Dunn on a train that derails and kills everybody except for him. And then that's where Elijah sees the story and then contacts Mr. Dunn to kind of elaborate on his theory that comic books aren't necessarily just stories. They're kind of almost like a religious doctrine. They've been translated and changed throughout the years, and that there is actually some truth to it. And then the story goes that you find out that David Dunn is a security worker, and he, works to help people. But then you find out that David Dunn, when he touches people, gets kind of a sense of bad things that they're done or that they're doing, and it's allowed him to stop a lot of bad things from happening. And so you get this story now where David Dunn isn't entirely sure if maybe there's something to what Elijah's saying. He's incredibly strong, and you get that from a scene where he's hitting the weight bench with his son, and his son put like 225 pounds on the bench, and he's like, that's too much, you got to take some off. And his son actually puts weights on instead. And so it starts this really cool scene where they just keep adding and adding and adding weight, and then until they got all the weights used up, and they're using paint cans tied to the ends. And it was actually a very cool scene. And this movie is got an amazing score, which this scene and other scenes really grab you and pull you in. But it also has some very cool cinematography, and Shyamalan does a lot of one-shots here, where some scenes are strictly one shot, beginning to end, and it really works out well for the movie. It kind of creates a very cool feel. And another thing he does with this feel is the color palette. He really strips down the color palette. He uses blues, dark greens, purple for Mr. Glass, as Elijah is called. And so it really has some very, very good nuance to it. But the one thing that I was kind of a little everybody was huge on this movie, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely love it. I think it's great, but I think a lot of people are a lot higher on it than I am, mainly because of the ending, because you build up to one thing, and it's honestly a little anticlimactic. Like, you realize that Elijah is the villain, and he's looking for the hero for him to compete against, essentially. And, you know, when he finally shakes David Dunn's hand, David Dunn gets all these revelations of what Elijah has done, and he is in fact the one that has set up the train wreck, and he set up all these other like major catastrophes trying to find the hero to play his counterpart. And Elijah says, you know, I knew that I was going to be the villain. You know, the kids used to call me Mr. Glass in school. And so this whole movie, you think he's this good guy helping out this guy to become a hero, to find out, you know, that he has a higher purpose. And the realization at the end really kind of stuns Bruce Willis, and he just walks away from the situation, which again I thought was a little anticlimactic. But overall it was a very good story, and it is a story. There's not much action to it. I mean, as far as, you know, a standard comic book movie, this is not it. There's actually only one scene, I think, in this entire movie where anything really active takes place, and that's really more setting a feeling with the score of what's happening. And essentially what it is one of the people that Bruce comes in contact with, he realizes he's killing these girls and holding them hostage in his house, so he goes to the house and frees the girls, and the dude gets to jump on them at one point and throws them out a window into a pool where he almost drowns, but a couple of girls he freed pulls them out, and he goes back in and starts choking the guy, and you know, there's a little bit of a tussle, but the music behind it like just makes the moment. It really does. So, I mean, it was a very, very entertaining movie to watch. I think coming off The Sixth Sense, this was M. Night Shyalaman at the top of his game. It really was. The story, I felt like, was phenomenal. The acting was very good, and Bruce Willis in this was a very good actor. He really was. Just had that browbeaten look through most of it. You know, that's kind of the shtick he's supposed to be playing. But there are points in this movie where you see his face and you can feel the pain, and it really works. So I was a big fan of this movie. I can't wait for Glass, honestly. Split was very good. I'll get to that review here in a few. But, I mean, if I was to grade this overall, I would probably give it a 9 out of 10. It's a very solid movie. It really was. It was one of those movies that relied heavily on performance, and there was a lot of subtlety to this that created a feel. And that's what this movie was all about. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's where it's at. I'm going to leave it at 9 out of 10. Let me know what you think in the comments if you've seen this. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackwitz. Kaged Nation, out.